young boy. And I've seen that spirit, and now God has put on his heart to share, to be involved, and be involved in the mission of Bread of Life Church. And so occasionally he will come and give the message and share with us. And he is another one of my sons that God has given me. And I just praise the Lord for him. Thank you.
He's amazing.
Thanks, guys. You're the best. All right.
You like that, didn't you?
Oh, well, you know. I'm not saying anything. All right, real quick. You guys know I like to pray before I start, so can you join me in a word of prayer? Dearest Lord and Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for the able bodies that were able to be in your house today, Lord. And I thank you for the wonderful baptism we had this afternoon. Lord, I thank you so much for the life of Corey. And Lord, I ask that I pray this special prayer for him, that, Lord, you will continue to guide him in his life and everything that he does. And Lord, although there are things happening all around us, Lord, I pray that his eyes will stay focused on you. Lord, I ask that you do that for all of us. And Lord, as we hear the words that you have to speak to us today, I pray that we would receive them with open minds and open hearts, that each of us might leave this place changed for your glory. In Jesus' name we pray and ask all of these things. Amen. 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 All right. We're on this series, you know. Maybe empty isn't bad. Maybe empty isn't bad. And in fact, you know, you look at this picture, right? You see this, like, you know, this empty tomb. Okay, this empty tomb, you know, we're almost at Easter, right? The tomb, we're talking about the tomb. The tomb is hope, okay? Because the tomb, this means that God can raise people from the dead. This is what he did. This is what he did for his son. He raised Jesus from the dead. And tonight, you know, we're spinning a little bit different. Okay, once God fills you up, okay, he wants you to empty yourself out. Okay, once God does something for you, once he gives you something, he wants you to pour those blessings onto others. All right, every day we can get filled up and poured out. And Jesus, he put it this way. This comes from Luke 6:38. It says, if you give to others, you will be given a full amount in return. It will be packed down, shaken together, and spilling over into your lap. You know, when Jesus said, you know, those words, the people had a metaphor. Okay, they had something real time that they could look at, something that they could compare what he's saying into their life today. Okay, something they see every day. That is the way that I've found. This is the way that we can reach people. This is the way that we can talk to people. Is you have to make it real. You have to be able to show them that this isn't just, you know, some mumbo jumbo sort of thing, right? But Jesus made these things real to them, the things that he talked about. And you know, the Sea of Galilee, right? The Sea of Galilee, this is one of Jesus' hot spots, all right? This is where he did a lot of good stuff here. But the Sea of Galilee, okay, Jesus did a lot of teaching. And this place, I mean, it's beautiful, it's vibrant, it's biodiverse, and, you know, it's got fertile lands all around. And there's a reason for that, okay? The Sea of Galilee, it takes from the Jordan River. It takes from the Jordan River to the north. And then it gives to the Jordan River to the south. And it's always giving, it's always receiving, and it's always giving, and it's so rich and it's full of life. And if you look at this image here, right, just south of that you have the Dead Sea. Now, if you know anything about the Dead Sea is the lowest place on earth, okay, the lowest land-based place on earth, right, lowest elevation. There's no life. There's no life. All it does is it keeps taking and taking from the Jordan River, and it doesn't give anywhere. All right? Now, Jesus, in the midst of all of this, okay, he says this. He says, freely you have received, freely give. All right? Don't be stagnant. I've given you all of these things, so go ahead and do something with them, right? And so this month, we've been reading through the book of Acts, right? And, this book is special because it's the deep thoughts. It's the deep thoughts of the apostles. Now, you should all have Bibles in front of you or on the chair. Feel free to turn to page 760 in those Story of God Bibles. If you don't have a Bible of your own, that is our gift to you from BOL. But page 760, okay, we're talking about an example of people who have received from God, and now they're pouring out that blessing, okay? Acts chapter 3. And it says this: one day, Peter and John were going up to the temple at the time of prayer, at 3 in the afternoon. Now a man crippled from birth was being carried to the temple gate called Beautiful, where he was put every day to beg those going into the temple courts. When he saw Peter and John about to enter, he asked them for money. Peter looked straight at him, as did John. Then Peter said, "Look at us." So the man gave them his attention, expecting to get something from them. And then Peter said, "Silver or gold I do not have," all right? My wallet is empty, right? "But my soul is full. But what I have to give you, in the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, walk." And so taking him by the right hand, he helped him up, and instantly the man's feet and ankles became strong. They received the Holy Spirit from God. And now these two men are pouring it out in a powerful and beautiful way to serve the lives of others. Okay, and it goes on to say that this same man who just got up, he jumped to his feet and he began to walk. Then he went with them to the temple courts, walking and jumping and praising God. And when all the people saw him walking and praising God, they recognized him as the same man who used to sit begging at the temple gate called Beautiful. And they were filled with wonder and amazement at what happened to him. Okay, so here's a guy who received a blessing, who was filled with healing, and now he's just pouring out God's praise to the world. You guys, if something good happens to you, don't you want to share it with somebody? Yes. Yeah, I think we can all relate to that. Something fortunate happens to you, it's like, wow, I got to tell somebody about this, right? Yes. When Jesus comes into your life, that's what it's like for some people. It's a fire, it's a roaring fire, and they just want to go out and tell everybody, look at the experience I've just had. I want to show you the kind of person I just met. I want to send you all out on that mission. I do. And you have your own lives, you have plenty of things to do, but there's I've seen these cards before.
I have one out. We have a couple over here.
We do have a couple. Okay, even better. So, these Tag Your It cards, what you can do is, my mission for you is to go out and do something nice for somebody. Okay, whether that's, paying for somebody's random meal, or, oh, can I pay for this for you? If you're mowing someone's lawn, or, the weather is changing. Some people need to wash their cars. That's a good thing too, right? Right? Yeah, but when you're done with your task, just hand them that card, okay? Hand them that Tag Your It card, and then they'll be, redirected to, I think they'll be redirected to our church, our church Facebook page. But what?
That's them here.
Yeah, and so there's some in the back if you want to take a look at those. But in Acts, okay, Acts 20:35, and I'm sorry about the font, you guys, but I didn't have all the tools with me. But it says, "In all things I have shown you that by working hard in this way we must help the weak and remember the words of our Lord Jesus, how he himself said it's more blessed to give than to receive." There's so much truth to that. There's so much truth in that. It is more blessed to give than to receive. Give beyond what you think you can do, okay? We're talking about being empty, right? Being empty, and then when you get filled up, pouring it out, doing something with it, okay? And then when you're empty again, what do you got to do? You got to fill yourself up again, okay? Don't be one of those people that you give and you give and you give, but you don't take the time to get yourself back together. Okay, that doesn't do anyone any good either. Okay, what good are you, if you're not in a perfect example? Some of us, we struggle with our health, and we want to help all these people, but if we ourselves aren't healthy, what good can we be, right? The strength has to be there, so there's a little bit of conscience that we have to keep with the things that we do. Okay, now, Dr. Tony Capolo, all right, he tells about this psychological study, okay, in which 50 people over the age of 95 were asked one question. If you could live life over again, what would you do differently? Okay, and it's an open-ended question, and you've probably heard it before, but there's all kinds of answers, and 3 answers constantly reemerged and dominated the results of the study. And it was, if I could do it over again, I would reflect more. If I could do it over again, I would risk more. If I could do it over again, I would do more things that would live on after I'm gone. Now that's interesting. That's interesting that at the end of life, okay, this was done with people over the age of 65, I believe. At the edge of life, okay, those who best understand what's truly meaningful, okay, tell us it's about what we give beyond ourselves. Isn't that interesting? And I think about, my own family, my great grandfather, Rainsford, and my dad has told me stories about that guy because he's pretty legendary back where we're from. But
where are you from?
In Ghana. My parents are from Ghana, and my great grandfather was a pretty influential guy back where my family was living, and one of the things that he always said was, life is war. Life is war, and life is a struggle. But the way that we go day to day, the things that we do that the next generation has to look at, those are the things that we have to be careful about. And so this was one of the ideas that he was trying to drill into, my dad said, and their siblings, and now, I hear about these things, but it's so significant, and I see it more and more every day. More and more every day. Like, what kind of legacy do I want to leave behind? That was one of our themes a couple months ago. The legacy to leave, right? Yeah. What kind of legacy do we want to leave behind? Okay. We can't grasp the significance of the things that we give until we've looked into the eyes of the next generation, or to the eyes of our community. All right. This church being a beacon for those who are unchurched, for those who are looking for something more, those who have been hurt in their lives. All right, this is a beacon for them. Okay, we never know the kind of impact we'll have when somebody walks through that door. We have no idea. And I want to kind of shift gears now and focus on another one of the Gospels. Okay, I want to turn to Mark. Okay, in the book of Mark. Okay, and here we have a telling about how God will use what you give, the things that He's filled you up with. He can use what you give, even when you're empty. He can multiply it. He can multiply it more than you could ever imagine. In Mark 6:31, it says this. It says, then, because there were so many people coming and going, they did not even have a chance to eat. And He said to them, come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest. So a little background for you. Okay, this is verse 31. Okay, Jesus sent his 12 disciples on a special missionary assignment. Okay, Jesus gave the 12 disciples authority, and then He sent them out to towns and villages, and this was supposed to be part of their training. Okay, this is supposed to prepare them for the time that when Jesus is long gone, that they would continue to do the work. Okay. And so now they've returned from an effective and successful time in ministry, and they're exhausted from the experience. Now, Mark's comment here about so many people coming and going kind of makes it sound like, when some of us make a trip out to Madison and people are all over the place, right? Yeah, especially, after a holiday or something. So Jesus invites his followers, those who have trusted in him, to leave, get away from the busy scene, and then just go to a quiet place to rest, right? And so by calling his followers away from the crowd, to the place that they're in now, it's like a desert place, all right? Jesus is reminding us that the essence of being a disciple, the essence of being a Christian, it's not all about, being in the busy stuff, okay? It's not all about doing stuff for Jesus. It's about being with him. Amen. Sometimes we have to get away. You guys, have you heard of retreats before? Yeah, sometimes that's what we got to do. We got to retreat. We got to take a time to just go and be with Jesus. Go and be with God. All right, Jesus is inviting them to just, guys, let's just go hang out. Let's just take a break from all this. You don't have to perform. You don't have to do anything. Just simply be. Just simply be. Right? And so they're feeling overwhelmed, by all of this chaos, the going in and out of the crowd. And here we find my first point of the night. When we follow Jesus, we will sometimes feel overwhelmed. All right, we're talking about feeling, maybe empty isn't so bad. Okay, when you're empty, you got to be filled up. But if you're empty, oh my goodness, I'm empty. I got to get filled up, right? Right? And sometimes, I feel like that mythical figure, Atlas, right? Atlas in Greek mythology, okay? This is the guy who, he carried the world on his shoulders. You guys have seen something like this before, right? Sometimes, you feel like you're carrying the burdens of your friends and of your family, parents, you are champions, right? You carry the burdens of your church family, right? Our community, the burdens of our nation, whatever, right? And it feels like sometimes it's crushing. It's crushing you. I know I feel that way sometimes. And I look at the task of sharing the good news of Jesus with every nation and every language, and I feel overwhelmed at the sheer size of the task, right? And so we want to look at the unchurched here at BOL, right? Here at BOL, we want to look at the unchurched. We want to kickstart them into discovering who God really is. Isn't that what we're about? Right? And so when we start feeling that way, that overwhelming feeling, we need to be reminded that following Jesus is first, Following Jesus is first and foremost in a relationship with him. It's not about doing stuff for Jesus to impress him, It's about conquering the evil of our world as a kind of, it's not about, conquering the evil of our world as a superhero, right? But it's being with him and being with his people in this community, all right? I want to move on here. Verse 32, it says, "So they went away by themselves in a boat to a solitary place. But many who saw them leaving recognized them and ran on foot from all the towns and got there ahead of them. When Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them, because they were like sheep without a shepherd. So he began teaching them many things." So I can feel for Jesus a little bit in this scenario. When you guys, it's a long day and you just want to go and relax, and then somebody's walking and they're like, "Oh, hey, how are you doing? Oh, let's catch up." And I'm like, "No, I'm tired, but I'll put on a smile anyway." Yeah, you've been in that situation before. I can feel for him right here, right? They're exhausted, they've been overwhelmed because they've been ministering all day, and then Jesus said, look, he had compassion on them. He's like, "You know what? I'm tired, but it's all good. Let's talk," right? Jesus has compassion on them. Okay. I thought this was interesting because if you go backwards a little bit, the Greek word that Mark uses here, it's a graphic word that means like he moved. This he had compassion on them. It means he moved to the core. He was moved to the core of his being. Now in the Greek, this is a deeply emotional word, and I'm not going to pretend like I know how to pronounce it. But the word that, refers to the experience of affection and compassion for another person, it's like, the highest form of affection you can show them. Okay, so now this phrase, okay, sheep without a shepherd, okay, it's played a significant role. It's played a significant role in a lot of things. And I have to bring it home, right? That's what we got to do here. We got to make it real. That's played a big role in our church, right? That's what we're all about. We're all about bringing in the unchurched. We're about the next person, right? We want to get out there and let people know that there is a God that cares about them.
Amen.
Like sheep without a shepherd. And he began teaching them many things. That's just something. That's something. And so my second point of the night, when we follow Jesus, other people's needs become a high priority in our lives. Okay, followers of Jesus align their priorities differently than those who don't follow Jesus. I mean, it might seem a little weird, but it's a fact. It's a fact. Okay, when you come to the faith in Jesus, you begin to see things that you couldn't see before. Okay, you begin to realize how important people truly are. Okay, I think of, I can't help it. You guys, have you heard of C.S. Lewis? Anyone? Yeah, C.S. Lewis. Yeah, it's a name that rings a bell. Anyone can name anything?
Out of the Silent Planets.
Out of the Silent Planets.
C.S. Lewis, did he do the Narnia?
Narnia. That's the one that we know him for. Yep, Chronicles of Narnia. All right, so Lewis, he said this. Okay, this is one of his quotes. He says, "You've never met a mere mortal, right? Okay, you've never met a mere mortal. This guy is a Christian. Okay, I'm just going to throw that out there. But those words meant so much more than what he was looking for. You've never met a mere mortal. You've never met an ordinary person. Okay, you've never seen somebody who wasn't anybody. Okay, you begin to realize once you come into a relationship with Christ, you begin to realize that the house that you live in can crumble, and the stock markets can crash, and the car that you have can break down. But when all is said and done, everything that God has willed for you is going to last. God's will for you is going to last forever. That is something that you can see. And have you learned that lesson? If you haven't learned that lesson yet, I encourage you to spend more time with him. I encourage you to spend more time with him so that he can show you. Don't just take my word for it. I encourage you to go check it out for yourself. Okay, when you follow Jesus, his character begins to rub off on you. The last time I was up here, I spoke to you about, like, when we have Jesus in our lives, that character is going to flow out of us, right? Get filled up. Get filled up with the love of Christ and let that flow out of you. Okay, and then you'll see what I'm talking about. All right, starting to treat people differently, trying to see things differently. All right, I want to continue. Verse 35, it says, "By this time it was late in the day, so his disciples came to him. 'This is a remote place,' they said, and it was already very late. 'Send the people away so that they can go to the surrounding countryside and villages and buy themselves something to eat.' But he answered, 'You give them something to eat.' And they said to him, 'That would take more than half a year's wages. Are we to go and spend that much on bread and give it to them to eat?'" All right, Jesus' followers, they're finally running on empty. Right? You see that. It's been a long day. They spent all their energy and their passion on this ministry trip that Jesus put them on, and then, when they've arrived to just relax, there's commotion, and they didn't have time to eat, and now their getaway, their retreat is spoiled because of all of these people, right? And they come to Jesus saying, "Send them away before the sun goes down. I just don't want to anymore, please." Right? They're ready for that break. That just one-on-one time with Jesus. And there's no fast food in the Galilean desert, right? And if they wait too long, right, they're going to start growing faint from, the dehydration and the hunger. And Jesus is saying, "It's okay, guys. You just feed them. Feed them." Right? And the disciples are saying, "Why? It's not our problem. It's not our problem. Don't they have money? They're the ones who crashed our party." All right? They didn't pack a lunch. Right? But Jesus says, you do it. You meet the need. That's interesting. You meet the need. And as they look at the people, okay, they exclaim, it would take 8 months of a person's wages to feed these people. Okay, when we follow Jesus, third point of the night, we will face needs that are far beyond our ability to meet. Jesus intentionally, okay, God intentionally brings us into situations where we can feel over our heads, okay, where what we have seems insignificant compared to what we need to face, okay? And I know that, there's a motto that's common among Christians, and it says, God will never give you more than you can handle. Right? And I suppose that there's a certain truth to that. But this story in particular, it reminds us of something. It says that if we think we can handle what, if we think we can handle what, God, if we think we can handle something, but God knows we can handle something else, that's two totally different things. And so God brings us into those situations where He calls us to meet the need that is far beyond what we think we can do. Have you had that experience in your life before?
Yes.
Let me tell you a story. Let me tell you a story about the time that I climbed up a tree when I was 7 years old. Okay, I climbed up a tree at recess. I got all the way to the top. And I looked down and I said, no way, no how. Okay, and I sat up there and I sat up there and I was yelling and I was kicking and I was screaming and my third grade teacher, Mr. Shell, he walks out and he said, David, you got yourself up there, you can get yourself down. Right? I thought that was way beyond my ability. Right? But all I had to do was do it. All I had to do was do it, okay? The confidence is something that we think we have to have before we're able to do something. Sometimes you don't have all the resources, right? Sometimes you want to do something, but you don't have all the means to do it. Sometimes you just got to do it, right? Sometimes you just got to do it. Okay, for God to bring you into those situations, okay? He does it so that you can realize how much you actually need.
Amen.
Right? A lot of people feel this way about, even in church. There's some of the things they want to participate in, whether they give, their finances or whatever to the church, right? Yet when we face the overwhelming need, okay, Jesus sometimes, He comes to us and says, you know what? You meet the need. You meet the need. Right? And you look and you can't imagine how you could even put a dent in this need, and it's like trying to empty the ocean with a teaspoon, right? Look at what happens next. Okay? Verse 38. How many loaves do you have? He said. Go and see. When they found out, they said 5 and 2 fish. Then Jesus directed them to have all the people sit down in groups on the green grass. And they sat down in groups of hundreds and fifties. And taking 5 loaves and 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, He gave thanks and broke the loaves. Then He gave them to His disciples to distribute to the people. He also divided the 2 fish among them all. They all ate and were satisfied. And the disciples picked up 12 basketfuls of broken pieces of bread and fish. The number of men who had eaten was 5,000. Let's rewind for a second. 5,000 from five loaves of bread and 2 fish. And it fed 5,000. Now, let's really think about this, okay? If Jesus is the Son of God, right? It's pretty reasonable to say, oh, well, naturally, He could just materialize the bread, right? He could just materialize bread for everybody. But He didn't do that. They came up, okay, they came up with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Not even enough, okay, for a dozen of McDonald's fish fillet, right? And Jesus breaks the people in all these groups, okay, 50 and 100, and then He takes what the disciples gave Him, thanks God for it, and breaks the loaves. Okay, then he gives it back to his followers with the instructions to distribute it among the people. Here we go. As they hand out the bread, okay, miraculously everyone eats until they're satisfied. Yet after everyone's eaten and satisfied, there are more leftovers, and there are more loaves and fish than there were at the beginning. And this is what we call the nature miracle, okay? But this nature miracle is unique because it's the only miracle from Jesus' early life that's recorded in all 4 biographies of Jesus in the Bible. This one really matters, okay? There's also an intentional contrast. Here, okay? We find the final principle, the final point of the night. When we follow Jesus, and that last part is cut off, when we follow Jesus, God will multiply what we give him far beyond our expectations. Okay, they presented Jesus with the few things that they had, okay? I was filled up and I let it go. I poured it out to everybody that I possibly could, right? I don't have enough. I don't have any more. It simply doesn't make sense from a human perspective that such a thing, to feed 5,000 from this little thing, is even possible. But when you look at the overall effect of what they gave, what they poured out, you realize that the effect was far greater than anything they could have imagined. Now notice the sequence, okay? The disciples, they were overwhelmed by a need that Jesus tells them to meet. And then they give Jesus the little that they had, okay? And then he consecrates what they gave him, and then he gives it back, okay? And then he says, use what I have given you to go serve them. And Jesus doesn't distribute the loaves of fish, but the people who gave it to him in the first place, okay? They surrendered ownership of it, right? We talk about being empty and getting filled up. When Jesus gives something to you, and you go and pour it out, right? You have to go back and get filled up, right? They surrendered ownership of the little food that they have, and when Jesus gave it back, he gave it back for them to manage, for them not to own, and they became stewards of what now belongs to Jesus, right? And so this is how it works with us, okay? In the face of the overwhelming needs, Jesus says, pour out what I have given to you, okay? And we murmur that, oh, this isn't enough. It's not enough. We don't have enough money. We don't have enough time. We don't have enough resources, enough education. But we give it to Jesus anyway.
Amen.
And instead of him keeping it for himself, he gives it back to us. And this time, trusting that what now belongs to him, okay, he gives it back to us. And that is the great paradigm shift. Okay, we're as followers of Jesus Christ, we realize that all we have belongs to him. All we have, we can surrender to him. Okay, this paradigm changes everything and how I can view my own life, okay? It changes the way that I can give. I can give the time commitment that I have for things. All right? It changes the ways that I view things. That if I don't think what I have is already enough, that God's going to do the rest. That's the lesson that I've learned throughout my life so far. I mean, I'm a pretty young guy. I'm only 21, right? I mean, who am I to talk about, right? Yeah. I mean, I'm only 21, but this is something that I've learned. This is something that I've learned. And the wonderful, exciting thing about this shift is how when I use what Jesus has given back to me, it has far-reaching effects that continue to blow my mind. And whenever I read this story, I think about another story, and another story, and another story. Different times in my life where God has just done amazing things. I want to tell you a story to close out this evening about a church in Philadelphia. Okay, a church in Philadelphia, and about a little girl whose name was Hattie Mae Wyatt. Okay, and Hattie Mae Wyatt, she wanted to help the children's ministry grow because their church was really small. And one day, Hattie, she started saving her pennies in a jar. And she wanted to help the church make more room so that they could have a children's ministry. And then 2 years later, Hattie tragically died in an accident. And in her pocketbook next to her bed, her parents found 57 pennies and a piece of paper. And then there was a note that's saying that all the money that's in this jar is to help the church build a bigger children's ministry. And at Hattie's funeral, the mother gave that 57 cents and the note to the pastor. And then the next week, the pastor shared Hattie's story with the congregation. And people's hearts were moved by what this little girl was trying to do. And so a realtor gave the church a piece of land to expand the children's ministry, and asking for 57 cents as the down payment. And a local newspaper carried the story. And soon news about Hattie Wyatt's 57 cents spread across the country. And the pennies grew far beyond Hattie's initial 57 pennies. All right, the church not only built a new children's ministry for the wing, but also a new ministry center. Today, it seats over 3,000 people. Out of that movement of generosity, from Hattie's example, the church built Temple University in Philadelphia. Wow. And Good Samaritan Hospital.
Wow.
You can visit Temple University today and find a picture on the wall of Hattie Wyatt, the little girl whose 57 pennies were used by God far beyond the limits of her life. God can take whatever you have inside you, whatever He's given you, whatever you want to do, God can use it in incredible ways far beyond your expectation. We're always talking about the next step, right? Are you running on empty? Do you feel overwhelmed with people's needs that are far beyond your capacity to meet? Do you feel like the weight of the world is on your shoulders? And Jesus is saying, you, give them something to eat. You, meet the need. If so, know that if you give your heart, if you give what you have to Jesus, He can use it far beyond your wildest dreams.
Amen.
Although you might still feel overwhelmed from time to time, you'll spend more time in the amazement at how God has taken such things, such small things from your life, and used them in great and powerful ways. Let's pray. Our dear Lord and Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for your words. Lord, I thank you so much for the lives of those you have touched. And Lord, I continue to pray for those who are seeking to know you, and I pray for those who don't know you. Lord, I ask today, Lord, as my genuine prayer, that all the people here, all the people hearing this message, Lord, would look deep within themselves. And Lord, that they would give themselves up to you. Lord, I ask that you would take full control in the lives of every person who hears this message, Lord. That you would reveal yourself to each and every person in a special way. That they might know that there is a God. Lord, you have said that you will keep them in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed upon you. Lord, that is my prayer this evening, that our minds would be stayed upon you. In Jesus' name we ask all these things. Amen.
Amen.
I know I was running a little bit longer than I intended, but so I hope you forgive me this time, guys.
That was a very good story. I enjoyed it.
On our closing song.